and go to Cairo, and that Cairo museum is just amazing. Saw King Tut's treasure and all that stuff, and we went to Valley of the Kings. If you really want to study something that's really interesting, is Memphis and Thebes and Valley of the Kings. It's just amazing. Some of the incredible engineering and designs that the Egyptians, the things that they built. Of course, they did it on the backs of others. We took a boat ride on the Nile River, and the tour guide stops along the way and says, "We have pretty good information, pretty good idea that this may have been possibly the area where Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses in the reeds, because there's a bunch of reeds. There's reeds. Maybe this is the place." No way of knowing, but old, wore out, oldest old boat I ever saw in my life. I wasn't sure if we should get on or not, but took a boat ride on the Nile. Took a camel ride from the Holiday Inn, about 1.25 miles up to a pyramid. That'll just give you a chill, absolute chill. And then go in the thing and go inside of it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Did you go in?
Yeah. Yeah, you go in. Yeah.
Or afternoon?
I'm sorry?
Was it in the morning or afternoon?
Would have been a late morning.
Oh, then you were good. Because when I was there, I went in the late afternoon, and the oxygen level was depleted.
Pyramids are not hollow, folks. They're solid from the outside all the way in. They have a passageway up to where the main burial room is. And then there's usually 4 or 5 false little trails that go so that they can, if someone was to get in there, they could, you would never get out. You would die. And it's amazing technology, that just bizarre. But I really had to pinch myself. Third time I had to pinch myself. I'm actually there. We're in Exodus chapter 3. We went through Genesis. What does the word Genesis mean? Beginning. Yeah, it means beginning. What does Exodus mean? Yeah. It means a mass departure. We are getting out. That's right. We're going to do a little review. Start in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8. A new king rose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Said to the people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase in number, and in the event of a war, possibly join our enemies and fight against us and escape the land." So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramses, for the Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so the Egyptians came to dread them. Oops, it didn't work. They just grew. I mean, they just multiplied even more like rabbits, and plan didn't work. In verse 15, king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of them was Sephra and the other Puah, "When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them in birth, if it is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, she lives." Verse 17 says, "But the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, and they let the boys live." Moses' life is spared, as you know, in the following verses. Pharaoh's daughter finds him floating in the reeds and brings him to live in royalty. Moses spent at this 40 years living in Pharaoh's palace. In chapter 2, verse 11. One day after Moses has grown up, he went out to the people and to his own people, and saw their forced labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own. kin. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day and saw two Hebrews fighting, he said to one who was in the wrong, "Why do you strike your fellow Hebrew?" The man answered, "Who made you ruler and judge over us?" It's a good question. Is Moses a good ruler and judge? At this point, he has no idea. He has no idea what he's in for. In verse 23 through 25, after a long time, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned under their slavery and cried out. Out of the slavery, their cry for help rose up to God, and God heard their groaning. And God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God looked upon the Israelites and took notice of them. How long? If you were one of the Israelites in chapter 12, verse 40, it says that they were slaves for 430 years. How many years before you start asking the question? God did.
Each generation would ask.
Every generation is going to say, "Haven't we learned yet? I mean, what more can we do? When will you deliver us from this?" And through the generations, it had to be a question that came up so many times. How many? As far as we know, how many Israelites do you think there are? At this point right now, we don't know, but we do know that in Numbers chapter 1, God calls for Moses and Aaron to have a census of the people. This is after they've come out. They've already crossed the Red Sea. They're at Sinai. And so Aaron and Moses are instructed to go through the clans, the tribes, the 12 tribes, and count the available men that could make up an army. And it was males 20 years old and older who were of fighting age. I have no clue. That's all it says. It doesn't say any more than that, but of fighting age. And as you go through the tribes and add all those up, they've got 600,000 men of fighting age at this point. So not including women, children, and older men, we've got 600,000. Talk about herding cats. We got a lot of cats here.
Younger boys.
Yeah, younger than 20.
Yeah.
Women, children, and older men. So it's believed that there were, between 1 million and 2 million people here. And the Egyptians are saying, okay, now, how many of us and how many of them? Boy, if they get mad at us, we're in trouble. So, we're going to have to do something about that. Anyway.
So he works them harder. That's not going to make them mad?
So he works them harder. And it backfired, actually, because they multiplied even more, it says. And God took notice of them. In verse 24, God heard their groaning and remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and God looked upon the Israelites and took notice of them. Chapter 3, verse 1 through 15. Can somebody read that? 1 through 15? You got eye contact with the teacher, and then it's you. Okay. 1 through 6, and then 7 through 15, okay? We got 2 readers. 1 through 6.
Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness. And he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And then he said, Do not come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He also said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God.
Okay, and to 15, please, yeah.
The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation.
At this point, what do most of the people know about God? What do they know about it?
Most of the Israelites?
Yeah, most of the Israelites. You're an Israelite, you've been there.
And he's powerful, and he can.
What has he done for them? What has God done for them in 400 years? What do they know about God?
They are probably wondering, they've been enslaved and working, so
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
guess they have forgotten God.
They know about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right.
That is a staple in Hebrew culture. And they're going to pass this on for 430 years, but for the most part, all they have seen is that God's abandoned them. Right? That's all they see.
It
Go.
probably wasn't shared either why God, or what they did, what their ancestors did in the wilderness, or why
Yeah.
they were cursed. And they probably, I'm sure, the sins of our fathers and mothers isn't something that's passed on to our children.
The young people have, the young people have to be thinking, wait a minute, now what is this about? What is all this? Why are we still doing this, all this?
For somebody else to say.
I wonder. And they grumbled and they complained and why did it take 400 some years? Why?
Well, they were surrounded by idolatry, and they all fell into idolatry.
They didn't learn very fast.
I am who I am, right? I'll decide this. I'll decide. Pardon me? They didn't have spinach? They didn't have spinach. There you go. I'm going to look that up for next week and make sure that's in there. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. That is in Scripture dozens of times. Abraham's son is Isaac, right? Isaac's son is Jacob. And this is clearly distinguishes God from all of the other Egyptian false gods. Israel had taken some of these false gods for their own during these 400 and some years, and they found themselves worshiping stuff. And God is now going to distinguish himself. Notice, God does not say, I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He doesn't say, I was. The term emphasizes the covenant that God made with Israel and God's chosen people with a promise. And the promise was that these 3 generations, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he makes a promise to them of land, descendants, and a blessing on the nation that would come through those 3. And so, this is way before Moses. So Moses says, okay, all right, you know, the God that abandoned you for all these years, he sent me to free you. I'm going to get you out of here. Okay. You're going to need, okay, now why did he choose you? And who are you that what kind of talent you got? Because I don't remember you having any real talent when you came out of the Pharaoh's palace. All you did was look like them and eat like them and watch us until finally, we're going to read here where he has enough, and he realizes that he's one of the Hebrews, and he needs to do something to help them. Of course, God says, well, I'm going to be there. Don't worry about this. I am going to be there. I'm going to do this. This is not going to be by your hand, Moses. It's not going to be because of your eloquent speech it's not. It is not going to be about you. I'll take care of it. You just listen, and I'll tell you what to do. So, he's going to go to the people and say, I'm going to deliver you. I'm going to be your salvation. We'll call it that. I was teaching a Bible class in here maybe 10 years ago. And I was talking about proof. I was talking about the apostles as they went out to tell the world the good news of Jesus. And they were going to say, well, I've been sent by Jesus, handpicked and sent to tell you the good news of Jesus. And the people are going to question, all right, why you? And what kind of proof do you have? Remember the proof that they had? I mean, remember? They could drink poison and handle deadly snakes and some things that they could do to maybe prove that they were who they said they were. Well, Moses is going to need some proof, isn't he? And I said in that study, I said, you guys, nobody here knows this about me, but I used to be the world heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Do you remember? There's just, people kind of laughed and chuckled a little bit. Me. I used to be the world heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Which world? That's about it. Yeah, I don't know which world, he said. I said, well, wait. I got this 5-foot trophy at home. And it's got my name on it. And it says right on it, Tim Tate, world heavyweight boxing champion of the world. And it just shows, that isn't proof. That isn't proof. You can go to the trophy shop. They will make anything you want if you want to pay them. Moses says, God sent me. Yeah, right. The proof we're going to find in the coming chapter here. But anyway, anybody want to say something there? Okay. Verse 16 through 22. 16 through 22. Who will read that for us? Who's got it? Tim's got it. Got it, Tim? Genesis chapter 3, 16 through 22. Exodus? Yeah.
3:22.
Yes. 16 through 22, please.
16.
Mm-hmm.
Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say unto them.
He has to read louder.
Okay. A little louder, Tim. Okay.
Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and of Jacob, hath appeared unto me, saying, I surely visited you, and have seen that which you have done to you in Egypt. I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken unto thy voice, and thou shalt, and thou and the elders of Israel unto the king of Egypt. And you shall say unto them, Lord, the God of Hebrews, hath met with us, and now let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God.
Okay, let's stop right there. Okay, so he's going to promise them some land. Land flowing with milk and honey. Land flowing with milk and honey. This is a word picture. And Jesus used a lot of word pictures when he did his parables, for example. Like the camel walking through the eye of a needle. When heaven is described with streets of gold. Those are word pictures to help you understand how incredible this is going to be, a land flowing with milk and honey. And in verse 18, he read, they will listen to your voice and to you and the elders of Israel. Go to the king and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Now let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Tim, I'm going to keep reading here, okay? I know, however, that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonder that I will perform on it. After that, he will let you go. I will bring the people into such favor with the Egyptians that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. Verse 22 says, listen to this, each woman will ask her neighbor, and any woman living in the neighbor's house for jewelry of silver and gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and so you will plunder the Egyptians. They're going to give it to you. You're going to ask them, and for some reason they're going to give you their gold and their silver. This 3 days journey thing. Egyptians worshipped a lot of things. They had a lot of gods. Matthew talked about it last week. They worship bugs, bugs and animals, and the stars and the moon, and they had a god to sand. That's a big god there. That's a big God. David wrote in Psalms 113, he said, David's writing to God, he says, everywhere I go, no matter where I go, you're there. Well, the Egyptians had their everywhere God too, everywhere they went. And they had a God to sand. That's how kind of absurd some of those were. But Sheep were worshipped in Egyptian culture. Sheep were worshipped as a sacred animal, and to kill one would have been regarded as a crime. And so, the sacrifice of sheep, which is part of the Hebrew or the Israelite sacrificial system and worship to God, expected them to take the sacrificial lamb and to kill it. Unless the Hebrews were to remove themselves to a faraway place, they would be unable to perform these sacred rites without danger of being disturbed or bloodshed, or possibly bloodshed. And so they ask for 3 days' journey to go worship God. Does Pharaoh go along with that? And why wouldn't he go along with that one?
He's afraid they're going to keep going.
They ain't coming back. They're probably not going to go. I wouldn't, would you? I'm not going back. And then he's got to go round up 1 million people and bring them back, and of course he refuses. But verse 22, each woman shall ask her neighbor. These are Egyptian neighbors, okay? And any woman living in the neighbor's house for jewelry, silver, and gold. Now, where is that going to come in handy? Over in Exodus chapter 32, I'm going to read a few verses here. Listen. When the people saw Moses delay from coming down from the mountain, you remember Sinai when he got the tablets, the people gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And so Aaron says, "Take off your gold rings that are on your ears, and the ears of your wives and your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold, formed it, and molded it, cast it into a calf, and said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." Aaron saw this, and he built an altar. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." Have you ever wondered where all this gold came? I did. I remember reading that. I was thinking, well, wait a minute, we're poor. We've been slaves for 400 years. Where are we going to get gold from? Well, the Egyptians just handed it to them. And verse 22 through 24, Aaron, do not let the anger of the Lord burn hot. You know the people that they are bent on evil. I'm looking for where he says, oh yeah, it is in verse 23. They said to me, "Make God and have it go before us. As for this Moses, a man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know where he is." Verse 24, so I said to them, chapter 32 of Exodus. So I said to them, whoever has gold, take it off. So they gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. It's a miracle. It's a big fat lie, it sure is. That's why verse 22 is in there. The women were to ask their neighbors. They would probably want to use this gold to trade for things, buy things, but yet God said, I'll give you everything you need. I'll give you everything you need. But they had this gold. They make a command. They command Aaron, Moses' own brother, to make us a god. Now, I think it's in Isaiah chapter 49. I've read this myself many times, but Prophet Isaiah, he's just beside himself. Man, he has banged his head against the wall more times because of these people. He says, all right, let me get this straight. Okay, you go out into the woods and you cut down a tree and you chop it into pieces and you make firewood. You make some 2x4s out of it so you can put an addition in your house. But you save this chunk. You save a piece of that very wood, and we're going to carve it into some kind of put a smiley face on there, and we're going to paint it up, and you're going to set it on the shelf, and you're going to worship it. How absurd is that? Isaiah says, I don't get it. Jeremiah says the same thing. He says, all right, so you're gonna heat your house with some of this, and then you're going to take another piece of the very same wood, and you're going to carve an image out of it, and that's what you're going to worship. And you're going to stick it on a shelf. You know what Jeremiah says about it? You know, the only thing your God can do for you is provide a little bit of shade. Provide you a little bit of shade. Maybe. You know your God. You know your God. You've watched so many things, and that you're going to get down and... Was that 2 bells?
Yep.
Oh, man. We didn't get very far, did we? That's two. All right, I got one more thing. I always save something for last. Was Moses a good leader? Was Moses a good leader? Well, he was certainly able to delegate, wasn't he? We didn't get to read it, but he tells God, he negotiates with God. He says, now, I can't speak very well. I mean, let Aaron do this. And so, he's a good delegator, and a good leader knows how to delegate. Okay, so in that area, he is a good leader. A good leader is open-minded and authentic. A good leader takes charge of bad situations, which Moses certainly did. But he does in the end get the job done. You can read it for yourself. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 34, and it says that Moses, of all the prophets of Israel, was the greatest of all of them. And he gets the job done, even as flawed as he is, as flawed as we are. God does not give a task without giving the tools, does he? And he never has. And he does that for us today, certainly. But man,
this nation of people, for 400 years are slaves because they wouldn't obey God and because they were worshiping idols of the country. And now here they're going to worship the calf. You just read about the calf. But then when they get into the land of Canaan, they do the same thing. They don't destroy the people, so therefore they start worshiping the gods of the people in the land.
with that, we're done.
Yeah, they don't give up.
We'll see you next week. Matthew and Janine will be back next week. Thank you.